We're going to call this meeting to order of the Costa Mesa Sanitary District. Roll call, please.
Director Mark Cooper.
Here.
Dr. Arthur Perry.
Here.
Secretary Arlene Schaefer.
Here.
Vice President Robert Uten.
Here.
President James Fairman.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, public comments. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board?
No comments were received from the public, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. Items of study. This is 1 through 7. Do I hear a motion or?
Mr. President, do you want me to start on item 1, the April 2020 organic tonnage report?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So this is just a standard report. As you know, we give this out every month. Recycling is been status quo during this pandemic. So these are the latest numbers with our organic recycling.
Looks like people staying at home.
Yeah, got a lot to do. Do a lot of yard work.
We don't have any numbers yet from CRNR, or what is the city reporting?
I don't know.
They have a new sustainability person over there, so I think we should contact them and find out, how they're handling it. It's their responsibility to make the report.
We've been trying, Vice President, and they just haven't gotten back to us.
Okay. You're talking about CRNR or the city?
The city.
Okay.
Okay. There's no questions now. I'll move on to item number 2, which is the solid waste diversion report.
That's what I was speaking about.
Okay. Yeah, the first one is organic. So the solid waste diversion report. I do want to mention that, as you know, the recycling center, the processing recycling has been postponed temporarily because CRNR couldn't comply with the social distancing requirements. We've been informed by CRNR that they have implemented new guidelines that's been approved by the state, and they were going to be reopening their processing center and start processing recyclables on July 4th.
That's good.
Yeah. That's good. Recycling is number 3.
So if there's no more question, item number 2, I'll go to number 3. And that's the code enforcement officer report. So I'll give this to Ed Roberts, who has been brought back onto duty last week. So the report's is really short. It's only about a week's worth of data, but I'll give Officer Roberts the opportunity to speak to you, and you have any questions, he's available to answer your questions.
Good morning, President Fairman and members of the board. Ed Roberts, I'll be presenting the code enforcement officer report. Much like Scott said, ladies and gentlemen, I was off for about 3/4 of the month due to the pandemic, the COVID-19 furlough. Scott was kind enough to bring me back for the final week of May. In that time, I kind of went after a lot of the properties that were looming. I was getting notifications while I was gone. So I have 29 notices of violation that were issued in that first week I was back. Unfortunately, I did receive several complaints regarding the transients and the scavenging. I was unable in that week to detect any and catch anyone. So 29 notices of violation issued, 0 scavengers were contacted in that last week of May. No instances of graffiti were noted, and I'd be glad to answer any questions for the board should you have any.
Any questions, Fred?
I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Marlene?
Okay. On Memorial weekend, was being that they had to postpone one day, how were you, did you have a lot of citations, or did people understand?
Ma'am, consistently during the course of the furlough, I was getting email contacts. My email's on my phone, so I was kind of just monitoring informally what the complaints were coming. I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary in that span of time. I was chomping at the bit to get back. So when I did hit the streets that first week, I just went and knocked out a lot of the complaints that had been looming around for a while, but nothing that I could report to you specifically for that Memorial Day.
Well, that shows that us giving a notice, letting them know that it's a day late, that they're abiding by it. Great, thank you.
I think so, ma'am. Generally, our population is pretty good about that stuff, but of course, we are going to have, the occasional issue here and there.
Right. Thank you.
My pleasure. Anyone else?
Anybody else have a question? Okay, thanks, Ed. Appreciate it.
Certainly, sir. My pleasure.
Item 4.
Thank you, Mr. President. Gina Tirano will be giving this report.
Okay, Gina.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the board. Before you is the Q2 legislative report for this year. After an extended coronavirus recess, California's legislators returned to the Capitol on May 4th to resume their work. I'll be providing a brief overview of some of the notable bills in my report, beginning with Congressional Bill HR 7073, which was championed by CSDA. This bill seeks to give special districts access to funding laid out in the Coronavirus Relief Fund within the CARES Act. The act provided relief funding to states, but it does not require states to pass on a portion of that funding to special districts. So HR 7073 would require states to direct 5% of future appropriations to special districts. Moving on to pending state legislation, district staff is recommending support of the following bills, starting with AB 1672. This is a bill that has been discussed in previous reports, but it would essentially prohibit companies from falsely claiming that sanitary wipes and similar wipe products are flushable. And it would create an enforcement framework by establishing a civil penalty of $2,500 per violation. AB 2107 is a bill that CSDA sponsored and has sought support on. It would extend the availability of securitized limited obligation notes as a funding source for special districts. And it would, allow them to improve upon land, facilities, or equipment, or acquire those things. This is seen as a cost-effective financing method for special districts that they would be able to use for a variety of projects under $2 million. So we did submit a letter of support on that bill. Next is AB 2182 and SB 1099. These are both bills that seek to address a public agency's ability to maintain critical infrastructure like pump stations during public safety power shutoffs. Currently, air quality control regulations make it difficult, or in some cases impossible, to conduct sufficient emergency generator testing while still abiding with time limits set for generator use. So SB 1099 is being supported by many local and statewide water agencies to ensure that agencies can test and maintain their generators without that time counting towards time limitations. To illustrate this, the district falls within the jurisdiction of the South Coast Air Quality Management District, which permits backup generators to run for no more than 200 hours, which is a little over 8 days per year, including maintenance and testing. So depending on the number of power outages that the district experiences in a year, this may or may not be sufficient for testing and for emergency use. Lastly, for our support bills, we have AB 2987, and this is a bill that would allow public agencies to post notices inviting formal bids on the district's website, rather than requiring them to be published in the newspaper. If passed, this would allow the district to save some money on publishing costs while still maintaining a sufficient amount of transparency in the bidding process. And then we do have one bill on our opposition list, and that's SB 939. And this bill seeks to prohibit commercial landlords from evicting tenants until 90 days after the COVID-19 state of emergency is lifted. The bill also authorizes certain types of commercial tenants to negotiate rent modifications or other economic requirements with landlords. And so since the district does have a tenant in its headquarters office building, this would restrict our ability to manage this rental. So that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have a question for Gina?
No, I just had a comment. I think that Gina is doing a great job on getting these letters out that we need to, on us, as far as showing opposition or agreeing with what CSDA is doing. It's really important to have that because they take that and they gives them the ability to go over to the Capitol and talk to the legislators, and then they see that their constituents feel certain ways. So anyway, I'd like to give her a little kudos on that.
Thank you.
I gave her all that information and boy, she's popping it out. That's great.
Okay. Anybody else have a question? Okay, let's move along. Thank you, Gina, for that good report. Ad hoc committee, policy review committee recommendations.
I think we're on, is the OC Fairgrounds, is that the next item, Nolani?
Yes, that is the next item.
Okay, so Mr. President, we're talking about the OC Fairgrounds sewer system. As you know, we've been focused on the Mendoza pump station tributary area due to the inflow in that area. And we recently did a smoke testing of the tributary area, and we believe the inflow is coming from the fairgrounds. We have partially been successful in identifying at least 2 sources that were illegally connected to our system. And we required fairground special to pour concrete in that system to prevent inflow from coming in to our main line. But now the next step was to find out if there's other illegal connections on the property. And so we're going to smoke test the property, but before we do that, we need to know where all the manhole covers are and where the pipes are. And so we were fortunate enough to receive the sewer plans from the fairgrounds. Their officials there have been very cooperative, and we did receive a copy of the plans. And then after we received the plans, Bao and Steve actually visited the property and physically found all the manhole covers. So we now know where the pipes and the manhole covers are on the property. The next step is to smoke test the fairgrounds, which ADS Engineering estimated it cost less than $10,000 to do that over about a course of 2 days. Unfortunately, we can't do it right now. I just don't have the money. So the plan is to smoke test it in July in the new budget year. Now that unfortunately the fairgrounds is not going to be open this year, July will be just fine. We can smoke test it and find the results. And if there's any more illegal connections, we can address those before the next storm season arrives. So that is my report. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Scott?
Scott, we have $2.3 million in undesignated wastewater funds. So is it a staffing budget issue, or is it? I fail to understand why it's a fiscal issue.
Well, if Caitlin can help me with this, answer that question, I think you're referring to the asset management fund, and you know, if you want us to appropriate that money, you know, we'd have to go to the board and ask for the appropriation. As far as I see this as an operating expense, and we just don't have the money right now in our operating budget to fund at this time. But come July, we will be ready to go.
Okay, I'll be using the same number in the next report.
Okay. Any other questions?
July is fine, you know, but I agree. There's, you know, not a huge urgency.
We're only 1 month out, Bob.
Yep. I think that, you know, okay, I got it.
Okay.
Okay, let's move along. My agenda here doesn't have the same thing you have, I don't think. Ad hoc engineering services committee recommendations.
Not yet, Mr. President. We're at the Consider Citizens Advisory Committee's the fiscal year 2020-21 goals and objectives. So, according to our CAC handbook, every year the president, the general manager, and the chair of the CAC would meet to discuss goals and objectives that you want the CAC to address for the upcoming year. In your staff report, I have a list of items if you want to consider for the CAC, or if there's something else that's not on this list you want the CAC to consider. Now's the time for that discussion, and then give President Fairman and myself direction, and we will meet with Chairman Mike Carey to develop a plan of goals and objectives for 2020-21. The bullet points before you are from our strategic plan. So there's a lot to do. It'll keep us focused on moving forward with our new strategic plan. They'll be coming before you at the end of the month for adoption considerations. But again, if there's something else on the list you want us to discuss, please let us know. So tonight we're looking for some direction from the board on what you want the CAC to discuss in the upcoming year.
Okay, any input here?
Well, Scott, I think this is just added work for staff. I would pretty drastically limit their input, because each of these items is going to require a lot of education and a lot of work by staff to educate them. So, you know, I don't quite understand the urgency. I think we should have an idea of the urgency of all of these items. Most of them are way beyond the scope of their understanding without an enormous amount of staff input.
I would agree with Bob. This is a quite extensive list. I would probably cut it down to like 5 to 10 main items.
Board Director, I'm not suggesting all these items. That the items here is just for your discussion to get the thinking flowing. So what is it? If you could pick a couple of these items, great. If you don't like any of these items, that's fine too. There's something else you want the CAC to talk about, that's great. It's just really to get the discussion going. That's really all the purpose of this item is not to send all these items to the CAC. It's just which ones do you like, to kind of pick and choose which ones do you like, or if you don't like any of these, which ones do you want us to talk about with the CAC? It's just to get the discussion going.
Hey Jim, this is Mike. Let me, if I can, Scott, I would stay away. The last section, all the financial stuff, the PAFR, the budgets, I think that's for us. And I would keep the budgetary and financial stuff out of their purview. I like the idea of them looking at sustainability issues. Some of the stuff about recycling, HHW, biomass, all of those things that have a future impact for us, you know, things that we're going to be looking at as a board in the future. That's where I would like them to focus if it can be done that way. But the financial stuff, that's really for us. And back to what Bob said about, I think it would take a lot of staff time to engage the CAC in the financial stuff.
Okay.
I agree with that too. Completely agree.
Mike, I agree as well.
Jim, have you met with Scott and the president?
No, we haven't. We have Director Perry. This is the first step, is get some direction to the board. What do you want us to bring back to Chairman Carey? And then the three of us will meet.
Okay. I would go with what Mike said, but this is an extensive list. You know, we wouldn't probably have time, the amount of time that we meet per year. This would be like a 5-year plan.
Yeah. No, again, it wasn't planned on the whole list, just to get you some ideas what the thinking. What sticks out in your mind that we should talk about the upcoming year?
Well, we could prioritize. We pick on that list too. I mean,
Sure.
you know, just go down and maybe pick 5 items, and you know, the top 5 get in the finals. You know, that kind of thing.
Well, has CW has that committee seen this list?
No.
Well, I would recommend you run it by them and see what their interests are.
It might muddy the water, though. You know.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
I would narrow the list down to what Director Schaefer said, Director Mike Schaefer, and you know, see if that lights their fire.
Okay.
Yeah, what I like about that with the financial end is that we're not taking staff time to make them go make presentations, as well as Scott. This way, you know, the financial shouldn't even be addressed for them, because that's why we were elected.
I get the feeling that's the overriding sense that I'm getting, that everybody is in agreement on this.
Well, with the one caveat, I would, if I may, the proposed budget, I think, is very important, because you do want public comment on board on your budgets, right? I mean that's our planning document. If all the financial documents, I would definitely suggest at least hear their comments on the budget, because you want your budget to be you want public participation in your budget process.
Well, they can participate whether they're on the committee or not.
Right.
If they're individually interested, you know, they should review the budget. That is a public document.
Yeah, I have a suggestion that when you meet with Jim and Bob the first Monday of the week and in July, maybe have them go over this list and kind of scratch out the ones they don't like. What do you think about that, Bob?
Okay.
That we can sit, because you guys meet the first Monday of the month, don't you?
Yeah.
And then take that list and just scratch out the ones you like, or add the ones you might like. That would be my suggestion. And then it's the 3 of you making that decision to present back to the board.
Well,
that's a good idea.
Everybody okay with that? Okay, well, let's proceed along those lines.
Okay.
But maybe we could limit the number of items to like 10.
Sure.
And just deal with that, and
sure.
That should cover the gamut pretty easily.
Not a problem.
Okay. Legal review.
So now we're on the Engineering Services Ad Hoc Committee, Mr. President.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. So as you know, on January 27th of this year, the board decided to continue the district's contract with Robin Hamers and Associates for engineering services after our longtime district engineer, Robin Hamers, passed away on January 9th. Michael Benesh is the firm's president and has been providing engineering services ever since. The board directed staff to report back after 6 months to reevaluate engineering services from RBH and then determine options for the future. On April 27th, the board created an engineering services ad hoc committee to consider options and make recommendations regarding engineering services for the future. Serving on that committee is President Fairman and Vice President Uten, and we did have our meeting on May 13th of this year. If you look, if you scroll down a little farther on the staff board, you'll see the current projects that RBH is working on, which is, project 309, 311, 318, 326, all those projects they're currently working on. And then below that are our future projects. And those future projects that we budgeted is nearly over $4 million. obviously this is a lot of CIP, a lot of capital projects that we have on the books. And it's in my opinion, it's and in the committee's opinion, it's a lot to handle for a firm like RBH to handle, or just having a district engineer by him or herself do it. So the thing was to go through a hybrid approach, and that hybrid approach would be to hire a professional engineer as the district engineer, and then also use RBH to help with the capital projects, like help with designs, construction management, maybe also other engineering services that the district engineer cannot perform because of the workload. The other benefits of having the district engineer is ensuring that we don't lose any institutional knowledge. Unfortunately, we did lose some of that with Rob passing. For example, trying to get documents and contracts. I'll be looking for them and I can't find, we don't have them. Unfortunately, I have to call RBH and learn they have them, and which shouldn't be the case. We should have all the contracts here with us in our facilities. Also, just a lot of, like with Rob, we asked him a question, he would know on the back of his hand immediately, where right now with Mike, he has to go back and he has to do some research, and he finds that information, but it just takes a bit longer for us to get it. Having someone here with that institutional knowledge would be very, very helpful to the organization. On your staff report as a list of how the services can be divided up. Engineering, I think what's really important, if we have our own district engineer, would actually have someone to maintain our asset management system by inputting data into GIS. So anytime a new infrastructure is put in or repaired infrastructure, we make sure our GIS is updated with our asset management. The district engineer can oversee our construction management and inspections program. Also prepare fixed assets and inventory reports, which is very important after we do our capital improvement projects. We need to make sure that, again, like I said, they're in our asset management system, but also make sure that they're depreciated. And there's that coordination with finance department. It's really important between the district engineer and the finance to do that. Also, I think would be very important for the district engineer is that person will be serving on my leadership team. And right now that leadership team consists of the finance manager, Caitlin, Nolani, Diana, and Steve. Having another person on that leadership team will be very beneficial to all of us, because we meet weekly and we talk about procedures and policies in the organization. We talk about our work culture, how to recognize and appreciate staff, development, all that stuff. That it's really important to the organization, and having another voice on that team would be very beneficial to us. The salary, as I put in the staff report, is based on the survey from engineers, special districts in Orange County. The range is from 160 to, the salary range is $126,076 to $170,000. If the board approves the committee's recommendation to go a hybrid approach, most likely we would hire someone in the mid-range, around $150,000, because we definitely want someone with experience. So I don't believe it's going to be very feasible. You're going to find someone at the low range. So I would anticipate somewhere in the mid-range at $150,000, which total fully burdened rate, I believe, would be $190,000 for the fully burdened rate. Also recommending that we hire an executive recruiting firm to recruit for this executive position. This position would be so important. We want to make sure we find the right person that fits our culture. And the executive recruiting firm can help us with that. They can help us expand the net, not only in Orange County, but statewide, and if need be nationally, to find a person that has the experience, that has the right personality, that meets with our organization, and can provide the job effectively. That costs, I'm estimating, between $25,000 to $30,000, and I have a list of firms that are well known in the industry that's all they do is they recruit for public positions. As I mentioned, the hybrid approach, if we go the mid range for the district engineer, be about $190,000. But then again, if you hire RBH, we use RBH to help us with our CIP projects. It's going to be additional money. It won't be any savings. It won't be any no cost. There will be some additional costs. So about, I'm estimating an additional $65,000. And that's, again, because of the hybrid approach of using the district engineer and the RBH. There's also some one-time expenditures that I listed in the financial review that comes to that $65,000. However, as I also mentioned, even though it will cost us more, I do believe the cost does. There's benefits outweigh the additional costs, which I identify in the staff report. Again, the most important part is that we have that institutional knowledge. We can transfer that knowledge to our district engineer, our engineering technician, who would also, that district engineer can coach and mentor Bao to be an engineer. Also provide support for SSOs. For example, the engineer can go out in the field and help us with the SSOs, and while at the same time, Mike Benesh can be looking up plans for us. So that, it can be a good team effort for both the district engineer and RBH when it comes to SSOs. Also, having an additional person on the leadership team is very, I think, it'd be very valuable to the organization. I do want to mention that if the board does approve the hybrid approach, that position would take the office that OC Second Chance is using right now, and so we would terminate that lease, and we would lose about $6,300 annually in revenue. So there's that loss of revenues as well. So there's that to consider. I know there's a lot to digest, but again, our recommendation, or at least the committee's recommendation, is to approve the hybrid approach for engineering services that include hiring a professional engineer as a district engineer and continue utilizing RBH for engineering services. Approve a district engineer's job description and salary range, and then direct staff to begin the recruitment of the district engineer by hiring an executive recruitment firm that specializes in public employee recruitments. We would bring that back to you on June 22nd for your formal approval considerations. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions?
Bob, did you look closely at this idea?
Yes. I would say 60% of our budget is in the CIP process. And I think I agree with Scott. We need somebody internally to, gain the institutional knowledge and, offload some of the staff work, consult with staff. I think an important consideration is, well, it's almost $11 million that we're likely to be designated for CIP. That's the asset management fund. There's about $2.3 million in undesignated funds. I consider those reserves, and spending $160,000 will give us substantial oversight that we don't presently have. Some of the problems we've had with change orders and concerns about billing, I think that this engineer could take on. One of the things that it'll eliminate is the conflict of interest, where we have to hire Orange County Sand District, to oversee when there is a conflict, with RBH doing private work. That's an evolving process. So we're going to get a new one every once in a while from Orange County Sand District, and we have to bring them up to speed. That $2.3 million, I think it's money well spent to invest some of that in a district engineer. I really don't call this a hybrid approach. what I call this is a normal approach. I believe we need we need that expertise in the House, and we need those documents that we legally own, somebody to tend them, somebody to oversee what is determined that RBH can do, or if we need to go faster, what other firms can do to do the engineering in a proper manner. I wasn't a big fan of this approach initially, but I believe it is the correct way to go. We have $2.3 million, and then we have another almost $11 million in CIP that's either committed or in the asset management fund to be committed, and in the facilities revolving fund that is to be committed. It has a lot more legal constraints, but what I would additionally ask is that we look for local recruiters. I think the engineering talent in Orange County, Ventura County, and LA County would suffice for us to be able to find a person to fill this. I don't want to get involved in, I would recommend that we not get involved in bringing somebody from Detroit, and paying those expenses to relocate them potentially. Yeah. And for them not to be familiar, with the local state regulations. But yes, Art, I'm, staff has convinced me that this is an important thing to do.
That's why I went to you, because of your background in engineering, and that, with your support, I'll approve this. From my end, anyway, my vote will be for yes.
Well, Jim and I had a chance to meet with staff and talk this over, and I think we're both in concurrence with the approach. There won't be a lot of money saved, like Scott said, in the actual CIP. It may be a wash, but I think we need to supervise internally, be able to supervise, better supervise the work that RBH has done, or does do, or will do for us in the future.
Any other comments?
Have we discussed this already with RBH?
I did. I mentioned it to him on Friday. I said, I didn't want to surprise him with anything. I said, I told him this is what the committee is recommending to the board, and I encouraged him to read the staff report and have any questions. I encouraged him to be at today's meeting. And I don't think he's logged in today for this meeting, but he didn't have any objections. He actually said it's probably the right way to go.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm in favor of proceeding with the way Director Oten said. It sounds logical, it sounds important, and it's extremely important to us.
Okay. I concur. I think it's a good approach, and hiring an outside advisor to help with the hiring is smart too. Anything else?
Well, there is a firm that I'd like to have you. I don't know how you're going to cull down all these firms. Are you going to do an RFP?
Yes.
The headhunters. I would like you to add Roberts Consulting Group to that. They're local.
Roberts Consulting Group. Okay, got it.
Yeah. They actually were the headhunter that got my son-in-law the job for the city of Anaheim. Okay. That's the only reason I know about them.
Okay, good enough. Awesome, thank you.
Hey, Scott, you've got CPS on your list?
Yes.
I'll just put a plug in for CPS. I know they're in Sacramento, but they're California based, and I've had some experience with them, and I think they're worth taking a look at.
Yes. Well, we use them at CSDA too. The CSDA uses them a lot for consulting services. I think all the headhunters here are from California. They are California. I think Terry Black's in Orange County, and then I think Bob Murray and Ralph Anderson. I think they're Northern California, but they're all in California, I believe.
Mike, which firm were you talking about?
CPS. We use them with SDRMA to hire our CEO.
Yeah,
and I was very impressed with their methodology and how they do things, and they have some really top-notch people working for them. So just a thought.
Yeah, we'll definitely include them. Absolutely.
Okay, anything else on that subject?
We'll bring this back to you on June 22nd for formal approval.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your support. Thank you.
Let's move along. Are we at number 6, Citizens Advisory Committee goals? Or we've already passed that?
We did that. Yeah.
Okay. Closing items. Anybody have anything to add for the cause?
No, I'm really excited about the smoke testing at the fairgrounds. And, you know, I hope that we've found them, but that's an old military base, and I don't think that. Well, I think it was ripe for opportunity to.
How receptive do you think the people over there are going to be to this? I mean, it's going to cost them money, isn't it?
Sure.
Well, the smoke test, the two storm drains that the staff found, they filled with concrete immediately. You know, they inherited this problem, and I think they realized the seriousness of it, and they've been very cooperative.
That's good.
Yeah. I think the military base just left them with a lot of problems that they will be glad not to continue with. And there may be none, but I suspect there are more.
Mr. President, could I say something? President?
Yes.
Okay. I'm concerned that we haven't heard anything about the group that we hired to do the PR and, you know, be able to come back with some kind of report to us. There's no report. And I noticed that every time I see anything on my emails that we're not included in with the chamber, the water, all these different people that I thought we were going to get to be, have our signature on there. Anyway.
Yeah, Mr. President, if I may, we just reviewed, they submitted their assessment reports and we're reviewing it right now. Our plan, the board does, we know the plan, the board wants to have a kickoff meeting with Tri-Pepe, and we were going to shoot for the July study session to kick it off.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's really quiet. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Closing items or oral communications? Director comments? And there's nobody in the public that would like to address us at this time. Okay, we're going to adjourn this meeting. Thank you for your attendance and cooperation.
Thank you. Thank you very much.